It is.
So, hello, good morning. Welcome to the Blackletter Brunch. My name is Raul Martinez, and our presenter today is Norwegian calligrapher and teacher Christopher Haanes. Now, I hope I pronounced that right.
Yeah.
Um, Christopher gave a talk for us 4.5 years ago, um, and he has generously offered to give another one for us today. He is going to talk about his two new books, ABC for Adults and Literally, and I'll be putting the links to those books in the chat shortly. Christopher, I'm intrigued by the title of your first book, ABC for Adults. Is that like parental guidance suggested? Is your book not advised for children under the age of 18?
Well, I jokingly, I mean, it is a bit of a joke, the title, because adult content is very often X-rated, but I can assure you that children wouldn't get much of a kick out of it, but no, but for adults they wouldn't get much of a sexual kick out of it because there's the only sexual thing that you can kind of squeeze out of it is under the letter X. Basically, it's one text for each letter of the alphabet, and under the letter X, of course, I mention X-rated, but there's nothing else. That's not advisable for children, kind of thing. So I'll get to the content of that. What I thought I'd do was okay. So basically, here's one book. It's called ABC for Adults, and I will get to the content of this. This came after this one, which is the Norwegian version Bokstavelig, which has just become 20 years after I've translated it into English, and it's called Literally. It's a hardback. I'll get to the actual books and I'll leaf through them, but the links to these, sorry, I'll hold up the correct one. The links to these, the English versions of these, is in chat, and I think will also post it in the kind of follow-up email with the link to the talk. So you can order them online and save me from poverty. Uh, so there you are. Now, what I thought I'd do, I thought it'd be boring for most of you to just see uh, uh, me showing you my books. So what I've done is I've assembled a kind of lecture where I'm experimenting with making typefaces. I'm trying to learn how to make typefaces, and I've done so for the last three and a half years, approximately. Is it 3 years? 2.5? Anyway, I just started making them. And I've always been interested in type and type design and the connection between the calligraphy and the typography. Um, and ever since my days at Roehampton back in 1987 to 89, when where I studied under Anne Camp, that you might be aware of that. So what I've done is I've assembled a little bit of a presentation on those typefaces that are not for sale. They have not been published. Most of them are work in progress, more or less finished. Some lack diacritics, some are not kerned properly, and then some of them are simply not finished, and there's a lot of work to be done. So let me just share my screen, and I'll and put your questions and comments in chat, and or you can talk afterwards. And I'll share my screen and see if I can open the document. It just worked. So here we are. So here's the typist lecture. I'm going to go to full screen as well. Here we are, full screen mode. And right, so these are the books, basically. This is the covers for both of them. Now, Raoul told me, because I was teaching in San Francisco, and the wonderful Susie Taylor got me over twice to teach in San Francisco, and so some of your faces are familiar. And yes, so Raoul told me he had this book already, and yes, and I have been selling it before because it came out in Norway. When? When did it? 2012. So in 2012, it came out in Norwegian, and then I translated it myself and published an English edition, and then I republished it as a print-on-demand book now, which is this one. Now, the cover of this one is different from the first English one because I'm using my own typeface for the sans serif. It's a sans serif that is a humanist sans serif in the vein of Gilson, Edward Johnston's Sans for the Underground, Syntax by Hansard Edward Meyer. I will also mention, of course, Sumner Stone's Stone Sans and his Stone Humanist Sans as, typefaces I've been certainly studying, looking at. But I'm not trying to like copy them. I'm trying to learn and be inspired by them. So there's one typeface here that's not been used before. It's not published. It's a work in progress. And there's also this is a typeface. So this is a typeface that I'll show you here, which is called Haanes Titling for now. It's its working name. I don't know if I'm ever going to publish them. I will get to that after. Why I'm not publishing them. But yeah. Uh, Okay, so these are the books, and here's the one typeface that is not in the book, but this is based on my calligraphy. It's a kind of a very personal take on a Roman capital, very broad edge pen based. It has, as you can see, a HR ligature. It has several other ligatures, RALA, for example, and I've also had fun making these little skulls. There's one that smokes a cigarette or a joint. It's up to you. You do the interpretation. There's another one having a kind of a flower in its mouth that has petals that are falling. I just had fun making them like really crudely in the Mac, so that's part of the font, as well as these swash strokes. And this was the first thing I did with this typeface was I made a cup out of this quote. It's from John Cale of the Velvet Underground from his album called Caribbean Sunset. And I've made it my Christmas card also a few years back. Christmas comes just like breakfast once a year for us night owls. Right. And here are the two typefaces assembled. Uh, one's called, it has a working title. It doesn't, I might change that. Top one's called Scripsit Bold, and the lower one's called Haanes Titling. And they both have these ligatures, and they have these special kind of glyphs where I combine two letters. They're not ligatured, they're not connected, but the LALL, AE, OE, which are normal in some German languages. You have OE and AE, and of course AE for Aeschylus, the for the Greek author, LLAE, etc. So you can see, and there's flourishes, and there's an RS ligature, RA ligature, etc. And flourishes, of course, for the R and the Q. So, I've had fun making these, although they're not accessible, and I'm not quite sure what to do with them yet. But one thing is to show them to my friends and colleagues around the world in Blackletter Brunch. Right. And not many people have seen all these. I mean, I've shown them to a couple of friends and my son. So this is based on San Vito's capitals, and you might be familiar with the work of Bartolomeo San Vito, but I'll just go ahead. And so he was a Renaissance scribe from Padua in Italy. He made beautiful work in the 1500s, wonderful calligraphy, and his main thing with the Roman inscriptional capitals, let me zoom in, is this serif. Very typically a pen-made serif built up, right? Going down the pen over, then and closing it again. So on the basis of these capitals that I started doing, I started making a Bartolomeo with minuscules as well, because I'm interested in Renaissance type. Oh, it's just my computer is stuck now. Sorry about that. It doesn't like me zooming. Patience. Okay, further out. I should be careful about zooming in and out. I see. It's my the computer I'm working on doesn't have enough RAM, it seems. Okay, so now it's jumped to this is a Bartolomeo font. I need to go out again. I'm sorry about this. It's getting stuck. Hmm. There we are. We should be fine. So this is actually me just trying to take the serif that Bartolomeo makes with the broad edge pen when he's copying Roman inscriptions. But he's using a pen-made serif. I'm taking that serif and putting it on my minuscules, call them Carolingian or whatever you call them, but they're humanist and they're so kind of putting putting the same serifs on those, trying to make a complete alphabet with, as you can see, lots of ligatures. The ST, of course, for Latin, FIFL, FF, FFI, FFL, FJ, commonly used for the Norwegian word fjord, and some swashes. So there's that. Then I made an italic, and what's been annoying me with this when I've just left this. I made it a couple of years back, 1.5 years back. What annoys me with this is the S. It stands out. It looks kind of heavy and kind of wide. So I will be working on the S and trying to make it more compatible with the rest of the italic. And also I'm a little bit worried about the G shape and some of the descenders that look like they're too short. Some of the descenders. So, there's lots of things I want to change. And another thing you want to be aware of is that the hairlines are really thin hairlines. So it would work really good, well in a title, for example, or on a book jacket cover. But for a more extensive text in smaller sizes, not great. So I would have to thicken up the hairlines and do a lot of work on it for it to work that way. I made swashes for it. This is a swashed capital alphabet from the same font, Bartolomeo, and some ampersands and swashes for the minuscules. Right. And so I recently did um, a new workshop on the civilité, which is basically the name of a font from around the 1560s, made by Robert Gragnon, pardon my French, Robert Grandjean, you probably pronounce it Robert Grandjean, Robert Gragnon. So he was French, Lyon area, famous book printer, and he actually printed Arabic as well as Latin at the time. And I think my theory is that he's inspired by by Arabic calligraphy for some of these swashes. So he's got a lot of these. But this is my take, and I made this into a font on the civility. Let me see if I can zoom in without it crashing. Seems okay. So this is my take on the civility, and a lot of people you will be familiar with Herman Zapp's civility, which are certainly an inspiration, but I haven't copied it. I did calligraphy where I was looking at a lot of different things, and then this is based on my calligraphy interpretation of a civility. So again, work in progress. These are the capitals. They look kind of crazy. I mean, look at the width of the O and the width of that L at the bottom. So basically, I have two different capital L's in the typeface, one which is really wide, looking a little bit more inspired, I guess, by Ernst Schneider's work and even the work of like the Legende typeface. And there's two different C's as well, as you can see here. One like that, curling up on itself, and one more like the Fraktur. Right. Now, I also made a typeface which is a multiple master one in several weights. It's called Digby because I studied at Digby Student College, which was under Roehampton Institute with Anne Camp. So it's a homage to basically Anne Camp and the teaching there. Now, this is just showing you one weight with the Robert Bringhurst quote, but of course, showing you taking one letter and showing you the different weights. So it comes in a very bold, and it has lighter weight also. And I I went to Rome I just taught in Rome. I taught earlier this year. I was teaching italic. No, sorry, earlier this year I was teaching Roman capitals, and this last one, a couple of months back, was teaching italic. Now, I went to a church in Rome called the Saint Paolo outside the walls. Huge. They have a an assembly of various inscriptions that are sort of early Christian ones. So they're not at the same time as the Trajan inscription or the Sextus Pompeius inscription at Via Appia, but they're slightly later. So they're more crude. They're after the kind of sack of Rome, and they're very crude and kind of interesting in a sense. So I was trying to make something that's sans serif, slightly inspired by these, but also a little bit just taking inspiration where I felt like it to make a typeface. So I made this one where some of the letters are kind of dancing around a little bit, like you would see in some inscriptions. As you can see, I have two different A's. Actually, there's three different A's. There's this one that you can see here. Yeah, this one. And this R is taken from the inscription, whereas this R is more of a normative one, if you like, looks more normal, more legible. There's two different G's. There's one in the word claiming here, and there's one in the word recording there. Keeping that open. There's two different E's, one rounded, which of course is something that you see also in later uncial scripts. So just me having fun with some capitals, trying to draw inspiration from these sort of more crude inscriptions. Now, my latest thing is to make something, because back in, and I asked Gunnlaugur Briem, the Icelandic calligrapher, for permission for this, and he sent me this. So I'm showing you this, which was the inspiration for something I did back in 1992. Inspiration. I am not copying his shapes completely because my own shapes are different. A lot of my shapes are different, but the basic principle is that I'm taking dual linear shapes. Okay, so they're basically uh, double pencil shapes. And then taking that dual linear quality and opening it up and playing with it. And that's what he's doing, and that's what I'm doing here. And this one which was a commission that I did back in 1992, long time now. Uh, yeah, Christ, more than 30 years. So they're drawn, and then I've done them with a broad edge pen afterwards, and then I've gone in with, I think at this point, a quill with some gouache, and just thrown in these crazier strokes in order to get more contrast, and some leaf gold on transfer gold. And I've also been playing around with these, which are they're still kind of dual linear, but there's much more movement in them. So this is from my notebook back in 2013, which is more than 10 years later. Still playing around with them, getting inspired by them, and just me being bored in an airport waiting for my flight home from teaching in Australia. And then I just recently made this typeface, which is based on those. So it goes way back. The inspiration goes like from several places, but mostly Graham. I know Ewan Clayton's been playing with similar shapes. So has Sumner Stone. This is my typeface. Hmm. And let's go in. So if you look closely, it still has differences between thicks and thins. It's work in progress. Some strokes are a little bit too thin, some might be too thick, but still, it still has that broad edge pen quality to each stroke, even though they're dual linear. So there's that. Working name Gestus. And this is me playing around with these dual linear things and movement, trying to make something for my son, whose birthday was just last month. He turned 27. And this is just me ad-libbing, just doing an improvised piece straight off um, for him, playing with movement, two or three different pens. At least, well, there's one browser, and I think there's a pointed nib. There might be two different browser nibs actually at work. Basically, having fun with them. There's things I'm not pleased with, but that's the thing with improvised. You gotta just accept things as they come, hoping that the whole will kind of take care of you. So there's my there's my lecture, and any comments are welcome in chat.
I
I think, yeah,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, it's fine.
I really liked your Bartolomeo Sanvito inspired Roman majuscules typeface. Um, the typeface was beautifully calligraphic. I really liked that. Um,
Thank you.
and I felt like I didn't think that the thins were extremely thin, so I think it might be okay in at a smaller size. I don't know if that would be a legibility issue, but
It could be a legibility issue, or it could be a printer's issue.
oh,
If the print isn't high resolution enough, you would really be depending on that. I'm thinking several things about these thin hairlines. The reason, of course, why I start off with them is because I'm a calligrapher. We want sharp, thin hairlines at any cost, right? We want sharpness. And there's that habit. But there's also the thinking that, okay, I could start off with a thin hairline and then people can use it eventually if I ever release it for larger sizes or titles. And then I can make maybe a multiple master optical sizes one where you can have, you can automatically generate things from one with thicker hairlines and some shapes slightly wider, maybe, that will work in smaller sizes. And then gradually it can create the optical sizes up to say 36 point or 72, whatever you choose up. So, there's that in the back of my head. I can always go back and make like one for say 8 point if you wanted to. At 8 point size, I think it would be worthless. But thanks. I'm glad you liked it. One of the things I've done to the capitals that Sanvito hasn't done, well, I've kind of narrowed down the O shapes, the D shapes, the C and G for the capitals a little bit. That's just personal interpretation just for this. That's one step away from the Roman origin in a sense, but that's what I wanted at the time. So I can't explain why. It's just because I choose these things myself. Okay. If there aren't any other questions, I'll just go ahead and talk about my books a little. I thought I'd just leaf through them physically using my document camera um, first, and then I'll go in and show you the PDFs and just leap through them, if that's okay with you. Let me just share my document camera. And completely dark. That's better. Um, right. So there was let me zoom out a little. So there's but not the greatest resolution. But here we are. Here's the Norwegian one, and translated into this, literally. And it's hardback. It's got red in the cover. It's print on demand, but the quality was surprisingly, it's very sharp. This isn't the, I mean, largest size. No, it's too light. See if I can put this on. Yeah. So this point size is actually really sharp in the book. It's in memory of Anne Camp, calligraphy teacher. I'm not going to spend a lot of time leafing through it because this resolution on my document camera is not big enough. So I'll just show you properly on the PDF. But I find them to be of good quality and both hardbacks. I'm using some of the typefaces that are new in the book, amongst them an unshield script, for the first one, doing that. So I'll switch to, so these are the two books, and I'll switch to my desktop and stop share the PDF. Oops, I've got to go out from here. So, okay, now turn off the spooky light. Right. So what I did, like the bokstavelig, the literally book, I started translating last summer after kind of a heavy breakup. Trying to stay sane, sometimes work can keep us alive and at least kicking. Um, okay, Michael, comments. Thank you in chat. Thank you very much. Who isn't a sucker for praise? I'm glad you like my typeface. Okay, so share my PDF again, and oops, I did this wrong. No, that's wrong. Cancel. Hang on. Okay, yeah. Close that window and open the. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll start off with the ABC for adults. I'll go full screen on this. This look okay to you now, Raoul?
Yeah, that looks fine. Now this
Okay.
in this one, the background is white. In the on the book cover, the background is black, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is the inside of the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So the outside is definitely black. And actually, this print on demand book got blacker than anything I've ever experienced. So it's really nice and black. It's got a film on it, so it doesn't, you don't get it stained don't get it finger stained that easily and everything. So it's really nice and black. So this is the inside. To my son Daniel. I made this as open spreads. So there's a clue to actually there's so a little bit of info on the book. It does say that I've used some of my unpublished fonts in it. Um, Now there's a clue to all the illustrations in the book here. So I'm going through all the letters of the alphabet, hieroglyph, Hebrew, Phoenician to Greek Roman. This is of course extremely simplified. Very, very simplified. And then uncial Carolingian Gothic cursive copperplate, right? With a very, very rough timeline. And right, so here they are. Um, and every illustration has that historical kind of timeline to it, but it also has an interpretation of a Roman pen-made majuscule letter and then a freer ruling pen letter on top of it. And there's every story I have for each letter of the alphabet. I'm taking liberties. I'm basically just thinking, okay, what does this letter remind me of? Can I weave a story around it? Can I put in historical information at the same time as keeping it entertaining? Um, and now I'm talking about Donald Duck at the moment here. And his Uncle Scrooge was constantly on the lookout for the bandits, the Beagle Boys, who in Norwegian simply were called the Bee Gang, connoting something second rate. You see, and then talking about the B for Bethlehem, which used to be the sign. It used to be the sign for house, where it started off with the Egyptian hieroglyph turning into the Canaanite, etc. So every little text is kind of packed with these uh, haphazard kind of mixing histories into the text and trying to make it lively. Um, on the sea. Uh, all right. And if I have a chance to talk about something typographic, I will. In this instance, it gave me a chance to talk about Herman Sapp's alphabet for the Cherokee Indians in the early 1980s and some copyright issues, etc. So, basically taking great liberties in the non-fiction text. The Gothic rotunda D on the beer do well. I was actually given a very strong Duvel beer in Belgium when I was doing a Belgian workshop once. I didn't turn up to class the next day. I came in late. All right, so Duvel is Flemish for devil. This is my uncial font for the Dubliner down there, not published. So all of these have a text, and it's just really fascinating to take a framework like the alphabet and just start spinning stories around it. I mean, you also have the Danish poet Inger Christensen, which has made a book of poems, which I strongly recommend, called Alphabet. It's been translated into English. Inger Christensen, CH for her last name, Inger. Christensen, Christensen, with a book Alphabet. Really great book of poems. Uh, but of course, as calligraphers, typographers, we have the extra plus of dealing with the visual representation of the letter and not just the meaning of words that starts with an E, like E. coli. And I'm complaining about having to do eurythmy, which they made us do in the Waldorf school in Norway, where I attended for 1 year until they more or less threw me out. So where the F has a certain move with the arms that you're making. Anyway, so partly jokes, partly puns, partly heavy history from back in the day, and the F, one of the funny stories about the letter F is, of course, that the Stern, the German magazine, bought a forged diary by Adolf Hitler at one point, and the person who forged it hadn't gotten the F right. It actually didn't say AF. It's AH, sorry, it says FH instead, and no one noticed in the Stern magazine. And they bought a fake copy of his diary for lots of money, and it was a big scandal in Germany at one point. Um, you know, lots of stories can be spun from this. The G, of course, gamma, which I don't speak Greek, but it does have Greek origin. But just reminds me of the Hulk, the Marvel comic figure, who gets gamma radiation on him. There's This gives me a chance to talk about Garamond, Claude Garamond, the famous French type designer, book printer, and all the different forms of Garamond that are around. So this is the way that the book is set out, and yeah, the I, the J, K. Let me get to the R. Actually, okay, so here's a font that I made in collaboration with Sumner Stone, who digitized it for a Norwegian publishing company in Norway. It's called Litterat, so it starts with an L. Yeah. M comes from the hieroglyph for water, talking about multiple master typefaces in connection with the M. Here's a digital representation of the foundational hand, which I made. Oh, difficult letter. I think I'm mentioning having O depressions in here because it's really hard to make the O with all the pen twists and turns without getting depressed. Yeah. Okay, and P, which basically in Greek is pronounced R, also gives me a chance to talk about the paragraph sign, paragraphos, um, just kind of mirror image P. And yeah, and some of the typefaces um, which are connected historically to the age of the papyri and made by Adrian Frutiger, Herculanum, for example. And in New Zealand, P is street lingo for methamphetamine, apparently. Not that I've, not that I've bought it there. Anyway, the Q, and of course, talking about the tail of the Q. Um, yeah, and of course, you might be familiar with this, the very famous quote by Cicero, which we see in a lot of old typeface samples, quisque tandem abutere Catilina patientia nostra, which starts with a Q. How long, Catalina, will you exploit our patience? And basically, it's what typeface foundries they wanted to sell their typefaces and they wanted to display their wonderful Q, this wonderful tail of the Q. It gave them a chance to do that, so they needed a Latin quote because Latin is more beautiful in type and in calligraphy sometimes because it has all these rhythm carrying letters like the M and the N. Anyway, so they took the Cicero quote, how long will you exploit our patience, Catilina, who is actually planning a coup d'etat in Rome in 63 AD. Okay. Now the R shade. Now this is I'm sometimes asked, do I have a favorite letter? Well, I don't really have a favorite letter, but if the Roman R is well made, then it's my favorite letter. I'm not sure if this is well made in your eyes, but it's actually it's quite a nice. I think I'm quite pleased. There's a pen made version of a Roman one, and extending throughout the spread, giving me a chance to cut into the text on this side. And a fun fact about it is that for many people speaking Latin back in the day, they called it littera canina, which means the dog's letter. And the dog's letter um, uh, occurs in Shakespeare, where in Romeo and Juliet, the nurse asks if Rosmarine and Romeo doesn't start with the same letter, saying that the letter R is the dog's name, because the nurse doesn't want them to have relations. Right, the S, the T, course, gives me a chance to talk about my favorite, uh, one of my favorite fonts to hate, to despise, is Times New Roman, in fact. I'm not crazy about that typeface at all. It gives me a chance to talk about it. And yeah, okay. And about the U, not being a Roman letter, of course, came in later. And the V, of course, gives me a chance to talk about Roman numerals because they use the V as a as a 5. The W, of course, came in later and might interest you to learn that English printers use the Y as a substitute for the thorn, the th sound, which wasn't always to be found in the case of letters made of lead, and that was imported from continental Europe. The English some still sometimes use the word ye instead of the to indicate that something is old-fashioned, ye old shop. The thorn sign is pronounced th and is very much alive and kicking in the Icelandic alphabet. But it's actually, when it says ye old shop, it's because they didn't have the th sound. So they might as well just spell it th. It's just to give the appearance of something old. And the Z, of course, the least used letter, according to Hermann Zapf, in the Latin alphabet. Um, and I can never write the word set, like the letter set now, without thinking of Hermann Zapf. So there's that. It has a historical overview, this book, at the end of it, and a list of literature. So there's that. Thank you, Patricia. And I have one more book, and that is the Literally. Now, one thing to say about it is that it's slightly thicker now than the Norwegian counterpart. And the reason why is because I've added three new essays. One is a an essay on the book, the codex form, which I've added, and there's one called Design Anti-Design, which is kind of a is me making an arse out of myself trying to be a philosopher, basically. So, sticking my head out in that essay, and there's one essay on reproductions, which I kind of find it's it's the most fresh essay in the book, and I kind of I like that essay because it talks about things that are really present as issues these days with AI and computers really becoming really powerful and threatening a lot of people who work like we do with our hands making things. Right, so I'm going to show you the next PDF and trying to stay not within the hour, but just maybe 15, 20 minutes longer, if you can bear me. So share screen again. And go out of this and into literally. Here we are. All right, so this is my Haanes titling, which has a swash and it has a two L's glyph. And also setting this up as a spread, I'm going to go full screen actually, giving you a better view. Yeah. These are the essays. Now, this is basically sitting down and thinking, how can I smuggle all this knowledge about letters that no one cares about but us into a format where people can read just a few pages of something, some phenomena connected with the world of letters? It might be typographic, it might be calligraphic, it might concern something very basic about, say, letters are things, not pictures of things. Try to explain to the lay people about what we do. So that's the idea. So, you know, if you're looking to get short, compact explanations of things relating to letters, this is the book. Um, in memory of my dear teacher on campus, who sadly passed away a few years back. And yeah, okay. Now this actually, Herman Zapf wrote me a letter because I sent him the Norwegian version of this. He doesn't speak Norwegian. It didn't speak Norwegian, and he saw this where it says I put German soldiers in there. And you know, and there's this letter with the Nazi emblem, which is the document banning the Gothic letter from the Nazi Empire in quite late 1941. But so I answered Herman because he said that you know the association with Nazism was kind of embarrassing, and that he talked about the war and all kinds of things. And of course, for Herman Zapf, this was loaded with a lot of emotional um, substance, whereas I was merely in the text. I'm merely pointing out that Gothic can be used for all those things that you see on the side. Jesus, Maria, Satan, Hitler, punk, skating, pub. Okay. And you could add, SM, sex, and whatever you want to the list. But Gothic can be used for Jägermeister. It can be used for homosexuality, Nazism, like anything on heaven, between heaven and earth, basically. But it depends which generation you're from. And that's one of my main point in this essay, is to point out this fact that Gothic can be interpreted in many different ways, which it's ironical that Ernst should react to it, in fact. But I sent him a very polite letter back and I gave him a translation of it and tried to explain what I was on about. He kept sending me Christmas cards, so I guess that was a good sign. Right, so that's about Gothic. This is a sample of a piece in Fraktur. Uh, it's a Shakespeare quote from one of the sonnets, "Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments." And then this is old. This is a Fraktur typeface that's work in progress. And you can see it's work in progress because the kerning is fucked. Pardon my French. But look at the NX, way too much space. And the TZ, of course, way too much space. But I guess I'm forgiven because it says work in progress. Legends of things, not pictures of things. And obviously, it's a quote from Eric Gill, but it goes to talk about one of the most essential things when it comes to our letters, and it is that our letters are not the same as the symbols that they use as a starting point in Chinese calligraphy, for example. We have a different system. Ours is purely phonetical. So I'm talking about that basic principle in this essay, which gives me the chance to talk about Chinese, Japanese, the difference, the similarity, how we might have a font that resembles hair for a hairdresser, and sometimes like this, the Herb Lublin famous um, mother and child, which becomes an illustration or a typogram in itself. Right. Now, and this is from my dear colleague Carl Roars, who actually, and this is the basic text comes from Jack Kerouac's On the Road. Would be very familiar with everyone from San Francisco. I'm sure you know it, Road. Uh, but it's Carl Roars posted, all of a sudden he posted the same quote from On the Road, and it said Bob Dylan underneath, which I wasn't familiar with. But the thing is, Bob Dylan famously has a poster, like he drops posters, and the text is taken from Jack Kerouac's On the Road, but Bob Dylan has written it, he's interpreted it wrong on the posters in one of the movies about Bob Dylan, and actually Allen Ginsberg's in the background and everything. So from that, Carl took the text, and I pointed out the fact that the original words were from On the Road. So, but I thought his calligraphic rendering was so great, and he's one of the living masters of the pointed brush in the West. So I felt like putting in a little piece of Carl Roars in my book. We switched pieces. Here's two typefaces. One is mine, one is made by Carl Twombly. Here's a little bit on Edward Johnston, and the underground is called London Underground Calling, taking its name from the Clash album. Great band, The Clash. This is from the Sextus Pompeius inscription. That's a new image, putting it next to graffiti from Pompeii. And this is an illustration for The Tail That Wagged the Dog, which is basically an essay on the Roman capitals and the inscriptional letters. And this was published, this is the wonderful alphabet by John Stevens, the master of the broad edge brush and Roman capitals. Probably, John has probably been the best calligrapher to do these Roman caps with a brush for several decades now. I have seen no one who can match him with these. They're just wonderful. So that came from the first of these, bokstavelig. Uh, and then this is Scottish, of course, and more on the Romans, and some on Vostroferon text. Um, so yeah, so basically, and then an essay on Small is Beautiful, where I am given the chance to talk about Rudolf Spearman, and then this page from the Bookshire Hofnagel manuscript, which Hermann Zapf really admired, uh, for small letters and the worth of small letters. Um, yeah, part on the arts and crafts movement. It gives me a chance to talk about typefaces, to show you the Dove's type, which was dumped in the River Thames, a story by itself, which is in the text. Edward Johnston's only typeface, made by Edward Prince, 1912 to 13. So the typeface not being made by Johnston, but the actual drawings were made by Johnston. Then Edward Prince made them into, he was the, oh dear, I forgot the word now. The graver. And something on the material aspect of letters using a image that I took in London back in 2004. If it's a sculpture or a sign, we can't tell. But the material aspects of letters also something that relates to a time when most people see things on screen. And also talking about the materiality of certain typefaces that have flourishes. Um, yeah, this is a fun one. The term, it used to say, look, the illustration on the side, it used to say the term punk used to mean somebody in prison who sucks dicks for cigarettes. Now, this was in one of the rock and roll pubs that I frequented in Oslo, and someone had erased the word punk, probably a punk rocker. He should erase the word punk because he didn't want to be someone who sucks dick for cigarettes in prisons. But so I found it to be like an excellent example where you can weave a story out of something where you can actually see the materiality of script in real life. And then, of course, Destroy Rock and Roll, which was in the same rock and roll pub. Uh, just funny. All right. And on handwriting, of course. So I actually expanded on this handwriting chapter from my first Norwegian publication. And I put in this, which was during the Corona, I actually made a copy of Rigis La Operina, being the first illustrated handwriting model in our European sphere. And I copied it 1-to-1 size with a broad edge pen, putting it back into the pen. Uh, all 33, I think, pages of Lopperino, and then my own little handwriting model at the end. A text on the indentation, which started off with a paragraph sign and then leaving it out, basically, and then leaving this instead of having that paragraph sign saying that it's a new paragraph. And this from different typefaces. The initial examples of typographic initials and a hierarchy of scripts, which is relevant to anyone interested in type and book design. And then this, which is my fictitious, or I haven't set the type for the actual book. It's me using the Cervantes novel as an example and then setting it in using the hierarchy of scripts to set it. Ampersands and ligatures, and these are all mine. So they're having a debut in this book. There's one Gothic one. There's two from Haanes Sons. There's one from my typeface Digby. Yeah, just different ones. All work in progress. The Victorian Albert Museum using famously this ampersand and this wonderful logo, which I think is very successful. I'm showing some of Julian Waters's wonderful typeface work here from the Waters titling typeface, etc. An explosive moment is about Friedrich Poppel and the ruling pen. Let me just keep an eye on time. Yeah, we're good. Friedrich Poppel, The Ruling Pen, and a piece of Werner Schneider's work, a student of Friedrich Poppel, something on optical sizes that I talked about before, numerals, which are interesting because a lot of people say Arabic numerals about our numerals, but in fact, the Arabs call them Indian numerals. They call them Arham Hindaya, which means Indian numerals. So the Arabs got the numerals from the Indians, and then we got the numerals from the Arabs again. And we got them through Fibonacci, the father of the mathematician uh, Fibonacci, because Fibonacci means fili Bonaccio, the child of Bonaccio. So Bonaccio was a tradesman and he got the numerals from the Arabs, and then Fibonacci introduced them in the 1300s in a book called Libra Bacchi, introducing the numeral or numeric system to Europe. Right, a little bit about the numerals. So this is the actually, historical way that the numerals evolved. Jan Tschichold, one of my favorite type design book designers, and talking about modernity and the Bauhaus movement and how Jan Tschichold went in for the new typography and then switched. He switched sides almost. He went in for a more um, say uh, classical view on typography and book design later when he emigrated to Switzerland, saying that the new typographers in the Bauhaus tradition were um, its new typography's intolerant attitude particularly aligns with the German tendency towards the absolute. Its militant will to order and its demand for sole power align with the terrible components of Germanism that unleashed Hitler's rule and the entire Second World War. So these are really heavy words from Jan Tschichold, from Switzerland, after he kind of turns his back on the new typography movement that was initiated in Germany. So Sorbonne next, his Antiqua typeface, and then my essay on design anti-design, which is me making an ass of myself as a philosopher, um, quoting arts and crafts thinking, and also a little bit of Taoism, quoting the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, and uh, our letter. So this is the least illustrated essay. It only has the ink spot as an illustration, mainly text. The Codex. Text on. I'm approaching the end of my book, so the Codex, and the late Peter Frater sent me this photo to use, and but he died shortly after. So this is a wonderful photo by him and his own typesetting of letterpress typesetting. So books. And then this work of reproduction, I couldn't help but notice that behind Raoul, on his bookshelf, on the bookshelf behind Raoul, on the side of it, I think I can spot this alphabet by Hermann Zapf from Feder und Stickel, which was really is one of my favorite typefaces. No, sorry, one of my favorite alphabets from Feder und Stickel as well. Uh, yeah, I keep looking at it, and it's a wonderful inspiration. Um, and there it is. Yes.
The reason why I have this is because I gave a talk on fracture and I liked the use of the elephant trunk, which is the decorative swash on the left-hand side of some of the letters.
Oh,
So
right.
it's a
Yes.
beautiful, beautiful alphabet. I love my
It's insanely beautiful. Yes. According to Julian Walters, I think Herman had once said that, "Oh, it's nothing to do with me. It's August Rosenberg did all the work." Yeah, it's wonderful. So I'm taking chat, like I'm using the opportunity to show this wonderful page, of course, talking about reproductions, showing the collaboration, a little piece of it between the Zapf and Don Knuth, talking about me collaborating with Sumner Stone, talking about the collaboration between Sumner Stone and the Adobe Originals, of course, in Reed College, how it connects to Steve Jobs, all that story on, the technology and the way that we copy something. I'm mentioning the discussion between Jan van Krimpen and Stanley Morrison back in the day, who certainly didn't see eye to eye on the way that letters were reproduced typographically. They had big arguments going back and forth, and some of them were published in the Monotype archive. Um, yeah, again, back to Aldous Manutius, Pietro Bembo, showing a detail from the Etna cut by Griffo, and then a detail by, again, Bartolomeo Sanvito's calligraphy here, and then a detail by myself. This is calligraphy, my author studies in the form of sketches, and then this is my digitized Bartolomeo typeface. So I'm kind of ending with that. And there's the end of my book. It ends off with some classification, typographic classification that is helpful for the lay people, and again, a list of literature at the end. So 20 years after, republished and expanded upon from the Norwegian. There's that. Thank you, Helena. If you probably left the room, left a message. Thank you very much. And if you have any comments, I have a few minutes. Um,
Well, that's a wonderful and playful collection of letter art through the ages. I'm definitely going to get that. Um, you've got a little bit of everything in there. I like that.
yeah, I'm one of the things is I've been trying to, I guess, help the public in Norway get their eye, like open their eyes a little bit and see letters in context, because we don't have much of a calligraphic tradition here. And there's not much of a typographic book design tradition that they had in Sweden and Denmark through Bror Zachrisson, and also through Zapf visiting Sweden and Denmark, having an influence. We didn't have that much. So it's basic, it's trying to communicate that, but also I think in the broader context these days, two things I would say. I would say one, you're getting texts that are rather short, and people's attention span is shrinking. So it might give people a chance to read something short and condensed so that they don't get too bored in the age of, we all know it, on the age of the screen and the age of the dopamine kicks that we're getting hooked on. But also something you and Clayton mentioned, which kind of caught my attention at the time. We were talking about calligraphy, and we're talking about a certain type of calligraphy, and he said, well, a lot of it lacks context. And I thought that's an intelligent argument. If our letters lose context, what are we left with? Are we just doing something ornamental then? Just to fluff off like to puff off the everyday life of one another? And what are we like? Which context? Now, when I say context, I don't mean conceptualism. I mean a cultural context, that letters and letter arts are connected. Handwriting, typography, and calligraphy are connected, and they're connected with the book arts. They're connected with the way that we value or do not value our books, and they are connected with the text that is printed or written. And if we abandon the legibility aspect completely, then fine, but we are left still with a kind of a calligraphic context then, and talking with the abstract arts then. I mean, not all music has lyrics, and you can have gibberish lyrics like Obladi Oblada, or some Elvis Presley. But so you can still have music without text, and you can have calligraphy without text, but there's still the context. You can't quite get rid of it. And I guess this is my way of trying to get the letters placed in a cultural context somehow so that we can be able to communicate more with the people outside of our little world of letter arts, I guess. But it's a challenge. Hmm.
Well,
Long rant.
we try to do contemporary quotes using ancient alphabets, and I think we use the calligraphy to add interest to them, to add beauty to them, you know, visually, I mean. But I liked your reference to the piece by Carl Roars. I'm sure he'll appreciate that if he sees the
Yeah,
record.
I hope he sees it. I cherish the piece, and I still don't have the money to frame it, but it's there, and it's top of my bunch of things to frame. It will get framed. It's really beautiful. No, I'm thinking Carl is. I mean, one of the fascinating thing about California and this scene in San Francisco is that it's there's so much cultural stuff interwoven in with sign painting, and for Carl Roars, it was great fun getting to know him because we've taught together for in several different continents now, and seeing the way that he draws inspiration from various sources like classical calligraphy, sign writing, and psychedelic posters and all kinds of things, which is really the mishmash that you wouldn't really see in Norway with much more asceticism. There's much more asceticism there. Here, I guess, there's bare, like dark and stark place. So yeah, definitely challenge that. Okay, well, maybe we should just call it a night. If you don't have anything else on your mind. S-
Um, did anyone have any questions for Christopher? Any classes that are coming up that you are giving online?
Well, yes, I'm teaching actually I'm doing a foundational hand class. It's been a while, but I'm using what I'm doing is called foundational and the seven principles. I'm taking the seven principles that Johnston put down, the angle, the form, the weight to height, etc. But I'm trying to look how we can also create variations at the same time as looking into the basic principles. So I'm not just doing a foundational art workshop. I'm using the foundational as an example of something that to delve into what are these basic principles and how can we make them a little flexible. What happens when we increase the weight, decrease the weight? When we change the pen angle, what happens? More of an exploration rather than just a foundational workshop. So that'll start in the new year and it'll be on my homepage.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
sort of applying the idea of multiple masters.
It maybe in a sense you can say that, although it comes from Johnston, so it's before multiple master. But
Hmm.
yes, I mean they certainly overlap. Because you can definitely say that this is what happens in typography using multiple
Right,
masters,
right.
and then we can do it by hand by increasing or decreasing the pen width to the height, for example. So certainly, yeah.
Now,
Hmm.
is that on your web page? Your
It's on my webpage, and if you go to workshops, I guess.
Okay. Oh, foundation on the seven principles.
Yes,
Okay.
sounds like a fairy tale, isn't it?
Oh, here it is.
Seven,
Yeah, okay, I
seven
got.
dwarfs, or whatever.
Okay, that sounds like a good class. Yeah. You recently finished giving a a fracture class, didn't you?
Not so recent. Well, yes, I did. Where's that card? I was going to send it. I don't know. Where's that card? I don't have it. Well, I should have. See, mm, I put it in an envelope already. Okay, so I had a Christmas. Yes, I did a Christmas Gothic kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um,
That looked like.
and after that, I did a dual linear workshop using these.
Mhm.
Uh, Basically taking double pencils and writing on top of them with a broad edge pen kind of thing in order to look at the So I'm looking forward to the foundational class in January, and I have to dash now, I think. So,
Okay.
um,
Thank you very
A
much.
quick question. I'm not actually seeing the,
yeah.
the exact times and dates for that class. Am I looking in the wrong spot?
Oh, maybe I forgot to put the actual time and date on my webpage. Okay, it's
Because I'm interested, but
there's
I
always something,
don't.
right? Um, uh, it's 6th to 27th of January, Thursdays, 19:30, which is Norwegian way of saying 7:30 in the evening, Norwegian time, Central European time.
Okay.
So 7:30 Norwegian time, no, 7 Norwegian time to 8:30 Norwegian time, Thursdays, 6th to 27th of January. And I will get the webpage updated, I think, late tonight.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Great.
Thanks for pointing it out, Jennifer. Thank you. Okay, saving my sorry self from making an arse out of myself here. Okay, well, thank you for joining. I'm very grateful for this Blackletter Brunch to exist. I mean, it gives us a chance to interact, which there's not much of that in Norway. Okay.
Uh, Thank
Merry
you very
Christmas, everyone. Take care of one another.
Merry
Hope to see
Christmas.
you soon. Bye.
The next Blackletter Brunch will be on January 10th. The presenter is to be announced shortly. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Gracias, Raúl, por
Thank you.
invitarme.
Bye-bye.